As you can see, we have a Lenovo G70-80 computer that has a cracked screen. We're going to replace it. Now, obviously, this is a G70-80, but other G70 models are probably very similar, and this can probably be used for that entire line. Let's get started. First thing we have to do is we have to get this bezel off. Now, it varies from one computer to another, but on this particular model, it's just held in place by these little plastic clips. They're kind of easy to break, but not that easy to remove if you've got the right tool. The right tool in this case being something along the lines of a guitar pick. The edge of a credit card would work. Wouldn't use a screwdriver unless it's got a very wide blade. Otherwise you might put too much stress on the bezel here and you might damage it. Also, you don't want anything too sharp if you're going to save the screen for anything else. Obviously not going to do that here because, well, it's cracked. Anyway, we'll get started here. Just kind of slip your guitar pick or whatever you have back behind you and pry out a little bit, and it just pops out of the clips. Doesn't take any real pressure. Well, some of them are a little harder than others. And the bezel just pops right off. You gotta watch out for these two little hooks on the bottom. They can easily get caught. Now that you got the screen here, the screen is held in place by a few screws. They're just standard Phillips number zeros, no funny tri-wings or anything like that. No special security features, so get your Phillips screwdriver. The ones you need to remove have little arrows pointing to them, so they're easy to recognize. Especially since the pace that processors speed up has been slowing down the last few years, it's becoming more and more economical to actually replace these screens instead of buying a new computer. Now these also hold the plastic on the top, so you'll notice it'll come loose as I take these screws out. There's a total of 8 of them. They're all the same. Also, there is a Wi-Fi antenna, a little wire going all around the outside here. You'll be careful not to break that. The cover is also kind of underneath here. Okay, so now those screws are out. We can close it and take this cover off. Again, watch the wires. Unfortunately, there are no easily accessible clips that you can disconnect these wires from. So I'm just going to kind of prop it up here. And the screen, it's a little piece of tape here covering the logic board. A little connector here. Now if we look at my replacement, my friends at laptopscreen.com, notice it's got the same little connector. And it looks like the cable comes out. take this little piece of tape off, which is actually part of the cable, and that takes the connector right out. So we'll remove that. And get our new screen here. Make sure everything fits. Little piece of tape off here without damaging the cable, preferably. Okay, and now we can just lift the old screen right out. Actually, no, we can't. We've got a couple more screws along the side here. Missed those. Again, standard Phillips Type Zeros. Same as the others. There are 4 of them. This is where having a magnetic screwdriver is very useful because you don't lose these little screws. Careful not to drop the screen. Obviously this one, not as important as the new one, but either one. Always the last screw is hard, and that screen is out. So now we put the new one in. Take a little protective film off because this tape's going to be between that frame and the bezel. Make sure you got the right orientation. It just fits in this frame. Again, all these screws are the same, so just get it started through the frame here. Actually, I'm sorry, they aren't the same. The ones for the screen are slightly smaller. So you don't want to do what I just did and mix them up. But they're not enough different that you can easily tell by sight, so it's not that big of a deal. Just gonna line it up here. This is probably the hardest part of the whole process. This little screw into the equally little hole. But once the first one's in, the others are a little easier. Two in, 2 to go. And my last little monitor screw. always the last one's hardest because it doesn't want to line up. Okay, there we are. Now we need to connect our wire. Again, this wire was just kind of taped in place, so you'll be real careful to get it in there right. You'll hear a little click when it goes in all the way, but it's very, very silent. Just re-stick the tape down so it doesn't come loose. And now we put the cover back on. Again, we've got those little, not only do we have these little wires to be careful about, there are a couple little hooks on the back side that we have to line up or it's not going to work right. So you start, so basically you get those hooks in place and then you line everything else up. Being careful not to pinch the little Wi-Fi wires. There we go. Just gotta get the angle right. Tilting the screen further back sometimes helps. There we go. And it's in. Next we want to get these top screws in because this is going to tend to fall apart without them. Again, definitely recommend a magnetic screwdriver. And now all the hard stuff is done. Put these 3 little bottom screws in. A magnet on my screwdriver's head is better than my screwdriver is apparently. And probably a good idea to test it out before we put the bezel on. Make sure the screen actually works. There you are. It looks good. Well, obviously, this particular machine wasn't shut down correctly, so that'll be another issue for later. I know the screen works, so I'll put the bezel back on. Now with this bezel, you're going to notice these got these 2 little hooks on the bottom. They have to go into here. If you don't get them positioned quite right, you'll know. Because when you try to close the screen, you get this big loud click, or you might not be able to close it at all. And make sure those go down into the hinge. And then this just snaps together like that. That's what you get when you don't have these hooks down right. And there you go.